Sammy the Bull, the underboss who betrayed the Mafia. He was born into the world of ordinary men, yet grew into the heart of extraordinary darkness. They called him Sammy the Bull, a man who would rise from Brooklyn's tough streets to the very core of America's most powerful criminal empire. He would hold the position of underboss in the Gambino family, the largest mafia organization in the United States, and then he would do what no one believed possible. He would turn against them. This is the story of Salvatore "Sammy the Bull" Gravano, the man who broke the Mafia code of silence, changed organized crime forever, and paid a price that still follows him to this day. Salvatore Gravano was born on March 12, 1945, in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, a neighborhood filled with Italian immigrants who carried their traditions, pride, and, for some, their criminal connections across the Atlantic. His parents, Giorlando Gravano and Caterina Gravano, worked hard, honest people who could never have imagined the path their youngest son would take. As a boy, Sammy struggled at school. He had dyslexia, a condition that left him frustrated and misunderstood. Teachers labeled him slow and unteachable. His classmates mocked him. He learned early that the world respected strength more than sympathy. He turned to the streets, where fighting became his education. One day, when a group of older boys stole his bicycle, he fought them single-handedly and won. A local wise guy watching from the corner remarked that the kid fought like a bull. The name stuck. By his teenage years, Sammy was running with a gang known as the Rampers, a group of young Italians who fought rival gangs, stole cars, and hustled on the edge of the law. In 1964, at the age of 19, Gravano was drafted into the United States Army. For the first time, he experienced order and hierarchy that rewarded obedience and courage. He served at Fort Jackson in South Carolina, rose to the rank of corporal, and earned an honorable discharge in 1966. But when he returned to Brooklyn, the streets still called his name. Back home, Gravano found that the Mafia offered everything his childhood had denied him: belonging, respect, and power. He began running errands for a crew connected to the Colombo family. Theft, hijacking, and robbery were the entry tests. He excelled at all of them. Around 1968, his loyalty shifted toward the Gambino family, which was then led by the powerful boss Carlo Gambino. Sammy gravitated toward more ambitious men in Bensonhurst and became a soldier under the rising Captain Frank DeCicco. It was a partnership that would shape his life. By 1970, he had committed his first confirmed murder. A man named Joseph Colucci, Colombo associate suspected of plotting against him, was shot by Gravano. It was not only a killing, it was a declaration that Sammy the Bull was now part of something bigger, something that demanded blood as proof of loyalty. In 1976, the same year that Carlo Gambino died and Paul Castellano rose to power, Gravano was officially inducted into the Mafia. The ceremony was secret and sacred, the oath unbreakable, a prick of the finger, a burning saint's image, a vow that betrayal would be punished by death. He became a made man, part of an invisible kingdom with its own laws and its own morality. As a soldier, he proved invaluable. He ran construction companies, trucking businesses, and nightclubs. He became a bridge between street muscle and corporate respectability. Money poured in, power grew. In the late 1970s, he married Deborah Sabetta, a woman who would stand beside him through decades of danger and disgrace. They had 2 children, Gerard and Karen, who would later become known to television audiences through reality shows that bore the shadow of their father's past. By the early 1980s, cracks were forming in the Gambino empire. Paul Castellano's leadership had alienated many traditionalists. He preferred business suits to street corners. He lived in a mansion and distanced himself from the rank and file. John Gotti, charismatic and ruthless, saw opportunity. Gravano saw inevitability. On December 16, 1985, Castellano and his underboss Thomas Bellotti were gunned down outside Spark Steakhouse in Manhattan. It was one of the most audacious hits in Mafia history. Gravano was among the key conspirators. The message was clear. A new era had begun. Gotti became boss, DeCicco became underboss, and Gravano took control of the construction rackets that poured millions into the family's coffers. When DeCicco was killed by a car bomb in 1986, Gravano rose again, becoming Gotti's new underboss. As underboss, Sammy, the Bull, was a figure of immense influence. He managed extortion, loan sharking, gambling, and labor unions. He owned nightclubs, ran construction contracts, and lived with the confidence of a man untouchable by ordinary law. New York in the 1980s shimmered with greed and glamour. The Mafia moved easily between violence and luxury. In public, John Gotti wore designer suits and smiled for cameras. In private, Gravano ensured the family's business kept running and its enemies disappeared. But even within that empire, mistrust grew. Gravano began to see Gotti as reckless. Gotti loved attention. He appeared in newspapers, on television, and in courtrooms where juries seemed afraid to convict him. The media called him the Teflon Don because nothing stuck. For Gravano, the attention was poison. Every headline brought the FBI closer. By 1989, the FBI had planted hidden microphones in the Ravenite social club, the Gambino headquarters in Little Italy. They recorded hundreds of hours of conversations between Gotti, Gravano, and Frank LaCascio. In those tapes, Gotti blamed Gravano for the murders they had committed together. He called him greedy. He spoke as if Sammy were disposable. On December 11, 1990, federal agents stormed the club and arrested them all. The mighty Gambino leadership was in chains. For Gravano, it was a moment of truth. He had served faithfully for decades, but now, he heard with his own ears that the boss he had risked everything for was ready to sacrifice him. In November 1991, he made a decision that shocked the underworld. He agreed to cooperate with the government. He confessed to involvement in 19 murders, including those ordered by Gotti. In exchange for his testimony, prosecutors offered protection and a new life. Gravano's testimony in 1992 destroyed the myth of the untouchable boss. He spoke clearly, calmly, and in great detail about how the Gambino family operated. He named names, explained codes, and exposed the structure of the Mafia from the inside. On June 23, 1992, John Gotti was convicted of murder and racketeering and sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. Frank LaCascio received the same. For the FBI and the Department of Justice, Gravano was the most significant Mafia witness since Joe Valacchi 30 years earlier. For the Mafia, he was the ultimate traitor. The code of omerta, silence unto death, was broken by one of its highest ranks. After the trial, Gravano was sentenced to only 5 years, much of it already served. He entered the witness protection program with a new identity. For a while, he lived quietly in Arizona, but a man built on adrenaline and command found peace unbearable. By the late 1990s, he was again involved in crime, this time a large-scale ecstasy trafficking ring operating between Arizona and New York. In 2000, he was arrested alongside his son Gerard and several others. He pleaded guilty to state and federal charges, and in 2002, was sentenced to 20 years in New York and 19 years in Arizona, to run concurrently. Prison changed him again. He studied, reflected, and waited. He was released on September 18, 2017, after serving about 18 years. Today, Sammy Gravano is a man in his 70s, living openly under his real name. He gives interviews, runs a podcast and YouTube channel, and speaks about the choices that defined him. He calls himself both sinner and survivor. He admits his crimes yet insists that betrayal was necessary to save himself and his family. Public opinion remains divided. Some see him as the man who finally allowed justice to reach John Gotti. Others see a killer who escaped his own punishment. His story continues to provoke questions about loyalty, morality, and survival. The Mafia never forgave him. Many old associates would still consider his death a matter of unfinished business. But Gravano endures, carrying the weight of what he did and what he revealed. Sammy, the Bull's life is a mirror of the Mafia itself. A story of loyalty turned to suspicion, power turned to ruin, blood turned to confession. He lived by a code, broke it, and survived the consequences. If you want more true stories of the men who built and broke the criminal empires of our time, subscribe to my channel. More tales are coming, each drawn from history, each showing the hidden cost of power and the dark side of loyalty.